This episode is sponsored by Wendy's Saucy Nugs. You've had Wendy's Nugs dipped in sauce, but have you had them covered in sauce? Wendy's new Saucy Nugs. Take the crispy and spicy nugs you love and turn them up to 11. Choose between flavors like buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, or if you're a real heat seeker, try the spicy ghost pepper. Only on Wendy's signature Saucy Nugs. I dare ya. That's 7 delicious ways to try the nugs you already love. Pick the flavor, grab some extra napkins, and prepare to nug like you've never nugged before. For a whole new way to nug, it's gotta be Wendy's. At participating U.S. Wendy's. Welcome in to Says Who Sports. As always, can find Says Who Sports at Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts, and at the Says Who Sports YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe and leave a 5-star review. Doesn't cost you anything, helps spread awareness of the show. It's been almost a year since the first episode of Says Who Sports in March of 24. Fast time. Lot of strong guests, lot of legendary guests have joined us on the show. So as we approach that first anniversary of Says Who Sports, thought it fitting to put together a greatest hits of sorts, a compilation of strong stuff from the first season. From first guest, Hall of Fame coach Bob Hurley Sr. to multi-time Emmy Award-winner Michele Tafoya and all legends in between. From Bob Costas to Lou Holtz to Rocket Roger Clemens to Oscar winners Billy Bob Thornton and Cameron Crowe and so many more. This episode of Says Who Sports is a taste of the best of those conversations. And of course, you can find all of the first season episodes of Says Who Sports at Apple and Spotify and at the Says Who Sports YouTube channel. Thank you as always and enjoy. A Hall of Fame broadcaster, a man who has won more than 24 Emmys, the only person in television history to have won Emmys in sports, news, and entertainment, who's been on the call for or hosted many of the biggest sporting events in history, Bob Costas.
Goldie was a simple man. His concerns were playing hockey, beating people up, mostly on the ice, but occasionally at bars or backroom alleys if people foolishly challenged him, and the passing affections of young women who were attracted to the hockey scene. That was basically the hat trick of his concerns. And he had, therefore, at least at first glance, little use for me. He doesn't like to talk about it. He doesn't usually wear his heart on his sleeve in this regard. He is a really loyal friend. And he observes a code that, hey, this is the baseball code. So, you know, what we say in the clubhouse, what we say when we're not on the air, what we say amongst friends, it stays that way. And those who have broken that code with regard to him, not that any of it is scandalous or anything like that, but, you know, there's stuff that's public and there's stuff that's private. It's an old school code. And Bob observes that. And even at age 90, you know, that old expression, who do you want to be in a foxhole with? You know, if you got to walk down a dark alley or be in a foxhole with somebody who wouldn't turn and run, who would have your back because he's your friend, Euchre's one of those guys.
Speaking of the NBA Finals, you were in Chicago to call the 92 Bulls-Blazers Finals for NBC at the old Chicago Stadium. One of your producers spotted a notable figure, someone you knew a little bit, sitting behind the basket and urged you to go down and see if that person would agree to go on air. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I like the way you phrased that, John. So we haven't given away the identity yet. That person was Jack Nicholson. And I knew him a little bit because he was a regular at Laker games. And so I'd see him and say hello to him. And I think I was at dinner with him one time prior to that with some mutual friends. And so there's 5 minutes or so to go in the second quarter. And one of the producers at NBC says to me, do you know Jack Nicholson? And I say, well, yeah, kind of. Well, he's down there along the baseline behind the basket. He was in Chicago shooting Hoffa at that time. And of course, he's a big basketball fan. And of course, he's Jack Nicholson, so he can get good seats. They didn't happen to be center court. They were along the baseline under one of the baskets. But I knew Jack well enough, and I knew about him well enough to know that there's no way that he's going to come on with us at halftime. He wouldn't even go on with Johnny Carson just a month or so before that, during that period of time when Johnny Carson was saying farewell and everybody was lining up, climbing over one another to be on one more time with Johnny Carson. Jack Nicholson never saw him at any talk shows. And his theory always was, and I heard him state it, I'm a movie star. People leave their homes. This is before the new realities of Netflix and everything else. People leave their homes. They go to a theater. They see me on a big screen. That's different than being on that tiny screen. So the only time I'm on that tiny screen is if they take a shot of me while I'm at the Laker game. So I know all this, and I know he's going to say no. It's also the old Chicago Stadium before they built the United Center. So you're way the hell up in the rafters. That was our perch for the pregame and halftime. And so I'd have to climb down and go around the ramp and the whole thing, because they're not just going to send word. They think I'm their emissary. I'm the guy who has to ask him. Oh, my gosh, I know this is a fool's errand. But I do it, and I finally get there. And during a timeout with about 2 minutes to go, whatever it was, I tap him on the shoulder. He's standing up. I come up behind him. I tap him on the shoulder. And I've told it this way before. He turns this way, looking over his right shoulder. And the expression on his face reminded me of his look when you first see him in The Shining. And then he realizes it's me, and at least he recognized me, and he goes, oh, hi, Bob. And I say, Jack, just play along. They're watching. I'm supposed to ask you if you'll come on with us at halftime. And he says, Bobby, you're a nice kid. You do good work. How can I put this nicely? No effing way. But he didn't say effing. And I say, Jack, I got it. Enjoy the rest of the game. Now I go racing back upstairs, barely get there before they're going to throw it to me. Marv's going to throw it to me for halftime. I know it's a total waste of time, except in one respect. 30 years later, 32 years later, I still have a story.
You called a baseball game of the week in 1984 that became known as the Sandberg game. Cubs-Cardinals at Wrigley Field. Sandberg hits game-tying home runs in the 9th and 10th innings off Cards closer and former Cub, Bruce Sutter. Cubs go on to win the game in 11. There was one notable big-time Cubs fan who wasn't able to be at Wrigley that day. And months later, in the cold of winter, that Cubs fan shows up at your house for reasons related to that game. Please share.
That is right. Boy, you did some good research here. Yeah, it's the winter of 84 into 85. And I was living in New York then, had an apartment at 57th and 1st. And the doorbell rings. This is like, I didn't have a cell phone then, so and people just showed up then, so the doorbell rings. It's like a Saturday afternoon, and I open the door, and it's Ahmad Rashad, who I'd been working with on the football show. Great guy, longtime friend. By now he's a longtime friend. We were new friends then. And he's standing with a guy who at first, my first glance, I think, this is a homeless guy. What is he bringing this homeless guy in? He's got all disheveled. He's wearing a wool cap. And then I look a little closer, and it's Bill Murray. And Ahmad and Bill were friends for a while. And Bill, as everyone knows, is a Chicagoan, huge Cub fan, had famous appearances from time to time with Harry Carey in the booth at Wrigley Field, named a kid, this goes back more than 40 years, but named a kid Homer Banks Murray. Kid's first name is Homer, middle name is Banks, okay? And so there's Bill Murray with Ahmad, and Bill says, I hear you have a tape of the Sandberg game. And back then, that didn't mean a link on a phone or an iPad. It was a long game. It meant like 4 VHS tapes. But I had it. I had a VHS machine. We ordered pizza. We sat there and we watched it because Bill was in Europe shooting a film called The Razor's Edge, and he missed the game, and he missed that chunk of a great season. He was back in time for the playoffs, but he missed that part of the summer, and he hadn't seen the Sandberg game. So we sat and watched the game together. So that started a friendship. Ahmad and I were already friends, and Bill and I have crossed paths many times since then. And it just shows you, how sports gets into our hearts and our imaginations and how it makes connections. And as a matter of fact, in a couple of weeks, June 23rd will be the 40th anniversary of the Sandberg game. And they are unveiling a statue at Wrigley Field, a statue of Ryne Sandberg, appropriately on that anniversary. And Ryne has asked me to come to Chicago and introduce him at the ceremony before the game.
A man who spent 15 years as an official in the NFL, who was the referee in Super Bowl 52, a man who spent more than 2 decades as an NCAA basketball official, including March Madness games, currently the rules analyst for the NFL on CBS and for CBS and Partners for the NCAA tournament, Mr. Gene Steratore.
Awareness, in the moment awareness, the humility and understanding that every 5-second play in its own universe could define you for the rest of your life, which creates an amount of pressure that you cannot replicate again once you quit playing or once you quit participating. And officials are participating in football, those 6-second universes 150 times every Sunday in the NFL. When you focus on anything, I believe, in life to such a high level, especially under that pressure, you must take yourself to a place that becomes a very calm space. But your level of awareness is so high that you feel that moment. We got to be kids on the pretend field in the backyard. And we continue to be kids on the literal field. You're on hallowed ground. It's Lambeau Field. That's your brother.
One of the all-time great caddies on the PGA Tour, has done it at a high level for 35 years plus, spent 20 years on the bag for Fred Couples, including Fred's 92 Masters win, was with Dustin Johnson, spent over a decade caddying for Tiger Woods, including Tiger's 19 Masters win. Joe LaCava joins us.
He's 24/7. I'll get a text at 2 or 3 in the morning, and he'll tell me, listen, it's going to be a southwest wind tomorrow. It's changing. I think it's a 3-wood on number 12 instead of a driver. And I'm a pretty light sleeper, so I hear the phone and I look at it, and I said, okay. I said, you know what, Tiger, I actually agree with you. That's probably true, but I'd rather you turn the phone off and get some sleep right now. Right? We got a big day tomorrow. You're grinding. It's almost like a quietness around the golf course, like, okay, game on. Because now it's Tiger's time. He's tied with 6 or 7 holes to go. It's his to win. And people can feel the fact that, Tiger's done this in the past. He's probably going to do it again, but he hasn't been there in a while, so it's going to get pretty juicy and pretty dicey here. And people always say to me, well, when did you think he was going to win the thing? I said, well, I never thought that until he actually hold the putt on 18. But what I will tell you is when we got to 13T, if you start doing the math, I'm thinking to myself, there's going to be a lot of mid-iron shots coming in, including the par 5s. And if Tiger can hit some good drives, he is definitely going to capitalize and win this tournament because I consider him the greatest iron player of all time. And that's exactly what happened. He had good, solid iron shots. Obviously, he drove it well, too. But he had great iron shots into all these par 5s and long par 4s. And obviously, the one on 16 was incredible.
Billy Bob Thornton won an Oscar for Sling Blade, a multi-time Golden Globe winner. But before any of that, was playing in bands and touring with the best in the business.
There's a lot of pressure playing him because he's a real guy and he was around. And I think he went to coach at Abilene Christian after Odessa and Permian. And I got to talk to him on the phone before we did it, and I said, "Sir, is there anything that you would like me to not do? Or anything that's important to you about me playing this because I want to respect you?" And he said, "Well, I really don't curse. I would just ask you." And I didn't on the movie. I might have said a damn once. He goes, "That's fine." But, real cursing. And for me, you've seen some of the things I've done. That's usually a through line.
You have one game to win it all. And we'll talk, let's just say it's modern era. Who you taking as your starting pitcher between these guys? The Rocket or Greg Maddux?
Wow, boy, you talk about a tough one. Because Maddux could throw the ball exactly where he wanted to throw it every time he threw it.
Pinpoint. Yes.
He was a scientist. He was. I've never seen anything like it. What I loved about Maddux is he looked like an 8th grade science teacher. Yes. And yet he was a baseball pitcher. But dominant. Dominant. Yeah.
So dominant.
One game, I'm going to say this. I know Roger Clemens a little bit. I got to run into him in Texas this year, and I never met him. He and I have the same birthday, August 4th.
Oh, wow.
I have a picture of me standing next to him where it looks like a potato standing next to a toothpick. I look like Billy. I mean, it's ridiculous. You talk about feeling small. But anyway, so, and once on TV, you don't know. I didn't know that guy was a giant. I knew he was a big guy, but good grief. Anyway, because of our birthday connection, and because he was just dominant, and I think I would go with Roger on that. I just thought maybe my family and some of my friends would see it. I had never dreamed it would become what it did, and the people in it. To have those people in that movie at that time and to be able to make it for that kind of money, which was under $1 million, which, I paid $980,000 for that movie. We had no transportation department. I remember Robert Duvall changing his clothes to do his scene as my father. There, just on the set by the chair we do the scene in, changed into his union suit right there, because we couldn't afford, trailers. And nobody had a trailer. There was, like I said, no transportation department at all. We would walk to locations sometimes, the whole crew.
One of the best major league pitchers ever, who won, count them, 7 Cy Young Awards. Yes, most ever. Rocket Roger Clemens. Roger, thank you so much for joining us.
I wanted to make it to the majors before Reggie retired. I wanted to face Reggie Jackson, and I was able to do that at Fenway Park. I was a Red Sox. Reggie was a California Angel, and so that was pretty big thrill. And I think it was probably my 3rd or 4th start. I don't remember, but I know I had a couple starts under my belt before we got there. But when he was coming to the plate, and our PA announcer, big booming voice, Sherm Feller, Sherm would announce, now batting for the California Angels, number 4. I was like behind the mound going, okay, you're in the big leagues now. You're in the big leagues. You're facing Reggie Jackson. Here we go.
Did you get him or did he get you?
Well, great question. I got him the first 3 times, and I thought my shoulder was going to come off. I was throwing so hard. And his fourth at bat, he hit a 2-run homer in the bullpen off me, and I think I was more happy than he was. It's great that you can throw 100 miles an hour. It used to be, I would say it's great that you can throw 95 miles an hour, whatever. But it's great if you can throw 95 or 100 miles an hour. It's great if you can hit a ball 430 feet. I need a smart player playing behind me. I need you to pay attention to detail of how I'm breaking down a hitter, because you're going to get a ball to you. I need you to understand how to get strike one, and your work ethics need to be there. You have to have a great routine. Have a saying, in not only at the University of Texas in their pitching lab, but 2 or 3 other stadiums. My saying is, and it definitely holds true, is my only day off is the day I pitch. And that's the way the work that you got to do behind the scenes to be great.
A former All-American quarterback, and two-time Heisman Trophy finalist at Texas. Spent 14 seasons in the NFL. Now in his first season as a TV game analyst for Big Ten football on NBC Peacock. Straight out of Tuscola, Texas, Colt McCoy joins us.
I went to a really small school. I still, scratch my head on how I ended up getting to go to the best university in our state. And just how I got there is pretty crazy. Played small school football, Friday Night Lights. Midland was a couple hours away. Your town shuts down. It really is awesome. I mean, I think we had a sign on our somewhere in our building that said, football is not a matter of life and death. It's so much more than that. And
Love it.
It's a tough game, right? And it's I had to learn how to play the game not the way you played it in college, right? You got to be accurate. I think my biggest attribute all throughout those years was I was accurate with the football, and I could put it where I wanted to put it most times, and that's number one. Number two, I think, is just having a good grasp of your scheme and what you're going against, and I always felt like my edge was not my. I was athletic and I could make some plays, but my edge was understanding what we do against what you do.
The longtime college basketball analyst for CBS Sports, the man they still call Special K, Clark Kellogg.
How do I create different ways to describe what we're seeing, what we might see, in a way that's entertaining but also informative? And how do I continue to get deeper into my analysis? How do I better use data analytics to help paint a picture in a simple way, in a simple, engaging way, dream being realized? Draft day is one part of the reality. You're hearing your name called, you're going up to the commissioner, it was Larry O'Brien then, and being part of now an NBA franchise. That's step one. Training camp is another progression. Then the regular season. And then when you get out on the court against some of the folks that you've idolized and looked up to before you get there, Dr. J, Moses, Bird, Mikhail, Parrish, and now thinking, I need to prove that I belong out here. I can't be in all. I'm here. I want to show them and my teammates and my fans that I deserve to be a first-round pick. And I belong.
A 4-time Sports Emmy Award winner, former longtime sideline reporter for NBC and Sunday Night Football, Michele Tafoya.
I'm aiming to be better than all of them. And that means unbelievable preparation, study, research. Be ready. When you walk into an interview or onto the game field, you better be ready for anything that comes your way. You're not the story. The story is the story. You're not the story. And facts matter. And, confirmation of facts matter. Observation matters. The swimming in Rio, Michael Phelps' final year competing. I would leave that aquatic center every night, and literally I can picture myself shaking my head. I was like, I can't believe this is my job. Like, I'm getting paid to be here. Those Rio Olympics were so spectacularly fun because Team USA did so well, and it was okay to be a homer at the Olympics. You're broadcasting to the United States audience, and they care about the United States winning. And the team at the pool did so well. We had Katie Ledecky. We had so many great performances. It was just, I still get goosebumps when I think about it. It was such a privilege and such a joy. And my family was there with me. And so, that is fun. If anyone can ever make it to an Olympic pool for an Olympic swimming, like if you're going to go to LA,
gotta get there.
You got to get there. What's the best thing you can do during a broadcast? It's letting the broadcast breathe and not cramming too much. I think less is more is always a good lesson. You don't have to cram it full of words. That's the worst way to televise a game, in my personal opinion. Get your mind right, folks. Remember that of all the things in life, life isn't fair. It wasn't fair to me in a lot of instances. But once you accept that life isn't fair, and there's a lot of proof that life isn't fair. So you need to accept, you can try to make it fair, but it's never going to be perfect. Adapt. Winnie the Pooh stood in front of his closet and there were all red shirts hanging up. If you can't change your situation, change your mind. Change your mind, because the mind is the only thing you can control.
Right now, one of the all-time great college football coaches, a man who led Notre Dame to an undefeated and national championship season in 1988, Coach Lou Holtz. Coach, welcome into Says Who Sports, and thanks so much for joining us.
College athletics, you learn so much about unselfishness and perseverance and things like that. We've gotten away from that, where it's all now all about money. And you can pay people to perform. You cannot pay them to excel. To excel, there has to be something deep down inside that says, I don't want to be average. I don't want to be mediocre. I want to be the best I can be. Let's be accountable for the choices we make. But more importantly, let's live with the ramifications of the choices we make. People want to make certain choices, but then they want somebody else to be responsible for the results of those choices. That's not the way life should be. That's not what made this country great.
From the Dickie Betts Band to 25 years in the Allman Brothers Band, to Government Mule, to Phil Lesh and Friends, to The Dead, who's widely considered among the greatest guitar players ever, it's an honor to welcome singer and songwriter Warren Haynes to Says Who Sports.
You're playing your best when you shut your brain off or turn it over to the other side and stop thinking. And when those moments happen, it's the best you can possibly play. And I think it's the same with sports. The best you can possibly perform is when you're just in the midst of it, and you don't see the audience, you don't hear them, you don't think about what's coming next. It's just moment by moment, and you're caught up in it. True musicians remain students for life. The learning is the most important thing in a musician's life or career. The older you get, the harder it becomes to learn new stuff. The less often it happens. But anytime there's a door opened that teaches us something new and some new inspiration comes along, that's something that we all cherish immensely, and you're striving for that on stage. When I was 13, I hope I'm not getting the details wrong on this, my recollection of it, and it was a long, long time ago, was when I was 13, I pitched for the North Asheville All-Star team. And on the West Asheville All-Star team, which we faced, was a young Cal Ripken Jr. And so I pitched against him because his dad, Cal Ripken Sr., was the coach for the Asheville Orioles, the Asheville farm club of the Baltimore Orioles at that time. And so they were assigned to Asheville. And even then, even at 12 and 13, people were saying, man, Cal Jr. is really good.
A man who has created or been associated with many of the most iconic moments and words and names in pop culture. Honored to welcome Oscar-winning writer and director Cameron Crowe.
After Say Anything came out, he called me and he said, I really like this movie, Say Anything. Let me know if you have anything for me.
Wow.
And then years later, we wrote Jerry Maguire for Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks read the script I did hear him do one scene, so it's wild. I've seen Tom Hanks say, "I'm Jerry Maguire."
Jerry Maguire.
Trying to get the memos back after he's written the memo where, it gets him fired. But Tom Hanks was unable to do it because he was going to do that thing you do. And so my thing was like, let's send it to Tom Cruise. And Tom Cruise read it and said, "Let me come in and read it for you. You'll see if I'm right for the part." And he was. I just love the marriage of music and film. So sometimes early in the morning, it happened this morning. Sometimes early in the morning, you get that quiet voice that says, "What about this? What about that? What about this piece of music echoing across the hillside? Is that scene that you had in another place can happen here?" And, you make notes and you get up in the morning and sometimes you look at those notes you made like early when, the world is asleep and you should be asleep too. And some of them make no sense. And some of them are like, yeah, that's the stuff. I would say to the guys making Fast Times, like, let's just get a guy off the beach. And, but what happened was the casting director is a guy named Don Phillips, who had met a young actor named Sean Penn. He was in a movie that was shooting and he was so good that they were already calling him Sean De Niro. And so Sean Penn came in for an audition. And I remember like there were a few of us and Amy Heckerling and stuff were there. And Sean Penn came in and Don said, "Well, this is the guy that can play Jeff Spicoli." And Sean said, we said, "Okay, do the character." And Sean said, "No, you got to trust me. I know this guy. I grew up in Malibu. I know Jeff Spicoli. I'll give it to you." And we were like, "Okay, you're hired," which I can't believe we did it. But Don stuck up for us. We hired him. And John, he came to do the movie in character, had the checkerboard vans, which made Vans, an enormous amount of money later. He had built the character himself and never dealt with any of the other cast members outside of the character of Jeff Spicoli. And he pissed some of them off because he felt Spicoli was an outcast. My dream was to get an article in Rolling Stone, and then it was to get a cover story. And then that happened. And then the dream was like, wow, maybe one day they'll put my name on the cover along with the article, because they would do that sometimes. And there was a Led Zeppelin cover story that I did where they put my name on the cover. And I remember thinking, I have no more dreams. Nobody wanted to drive around to the theaters on opening night. I went to my friend's wedding in Phoenix, and my buddy and I were road tripping, and it was like Saturday afternoon after the movie had opened on a Friday night, and it was kind of like a death wish. I go, well, I guess it's playing at a theater in Tucson or something here. Let's just go see the empty theater where Fast Times is playing. Yes, they let it play in Tucson, So we drive by. John, it's packed. It's packed. They're howling at the movie. They're laughing at Spicoli. There's a guy standing in the lobby that had already seen the movie 3 times and had checkerboard vans. And I'm like, what? This is like a high-pitched signal that went out to kids that there was a movie about kids, and nobody knew that you could find an audience like that, and nor had they ever shown the movie to an audience that really wanted to see it. The truth is, the movies that we call like that run that you're talking about, so much of it, John, is in the hands of those actors. The actors that you choose that say the words and bring it to life. Boy, Tom Cruise doing your words, that's a gift that keeps on giving, John Cusack can say anything. That guy there was a fusion of what was on the page and what he was able to say on screen. And the thing that keeps you going, and this was true, and I learned it from Billy Wilder too, is when you're behind the camera, and somebody's saying those words that you worked on at 3 a.m. to get just right, and they're making it better than your wildest dreams, you got no choice but to keep going. It's the greatest thrill of all time.
The man who knows what the big business side of sports is all about, who has negotiated billions of dollars worth of contracts for many of the biggest names in sports history. Patrick Mahomes, Troy Aikman, Steve Young, the one and only Lee Steinberg.
Well, the key to winning in sports is look at, if they were having a draft, they ought to draft owners. They ought to draft general managers. They ought to draft coaches, because the key to winning is having stability at the ownership position, having a front office that masters all the skills. When you're sitting with the player, draft time is not real time. That 15 minutes it used to be, now 10 minutes between the picks, is water torture time. Every second seems like a minute. Every minute seems like an hour. Drip, drip, drip. Well, the toughest, beyond any doubt, is right there in Cincinnati, and that's Mike Brown. I had the first round draft pick of the Bengals in 1987, 1992, 1994, 1995, and 1999. If Mike Brown, if I represented astronauts, Mike Brown would be commissioner of the moon, right? He just would say, no, 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 no.
A basketball Hall of Famer, one of only 3 high school coaches ever to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, a coach who won 28 state championships in 39 years at the helm, a coach who led his teams to 5 undefeated seasons, a coach who won 4 national championships, the former coach at St. Anthony High School in Jersey City, New Jersey, Bob Hurley Sr. Nothing like March, and the Hurley family has always been at the center of it in the best ways.
It was a great shared experience, John. You know, I absolutely loved what I was doing. The kids that came to play at my school loved basketball and were open to being led into areas and become better in other things. I think what's happened to the game is we have been influenced by the European game to take our players and take them to the perimeter. But like in any transition, you can't go from the way we played and then just go right to the 3-point line and have a transition in the sport, because it's a sport of like instantaneous decisions. So a couple of things I think have happened. I think ball handling, extremely good now. Everybody is a proficient dribbler. I think kids' shooting range far greater than it's ever been. I think the pass right now has really deteriorated. I'll give you an example. Bobby, my son Bobby, still has the NCAA record for assists. And he did that. He finished his career in 1993. So that's 30. That record has lasted 31 years with guys playing 4 and 5 years now, and they still have it because the pass is not as important as the individual stuff.
Hurley's Hardware, based on all of those trophies, all of the blood. This is a man who has won the Kentucky Derby 3 times, including with Big Brown in 2008. A man who has won the Preakness 3 times, who has won the Belmont Stakes. Kent DeSormo, Kentucky Derby right around the corner, matter of days. The energy of being at the controls of a 1,000-pound animal that is moving at 40 miles an hour and in a pack. The horses are heel to heel. Take us there. Give us a feel. Help us feel that, experience that.
Okay, I got an idea. I got an idea that I can try to explain it. I'll try to explain it. But imagine yourself getting almost in a wreck. Like you almost crashed and you survived it. Like your shit just freaked out, right? And then your eyes are wide open, and now you're able to continue. It kind of feels like that. And if I can lead you on and tell you about winning one,
please.
It's like an emotion that it's like when a child is born. It's like Chris Antley, rest in peace, he told me this one time. He said, you're lost. You're completely lost. You're completely lost in the woods, right? And then you're running scared. You don't know how to handle yourself. And you're just running between the trees. And then all of a sudden, you're going to win the Kentucky Derby. And then all of a sudden, you see your mom. There she is. And as the horse is running to the wire, you hug your mom after you've been lost. And that emotion is how it feels to win the Kentucky Derby.
The coach of the signature program in college softball for over 2 decades, who led her team to a record 4th straight national championship last month, who has won 8 national championships overall, has won more than 1,500 games in her storied career. Coach Patty Gasso of Oklahoma joining us. So you listened to the legendary Vin Scully calling Dodgers games with your mom on the transistor radio. I mean, that's
100%. Yeah. And I would listen to it sometimes at night. I would sneak it under my pillow if we were in bed. They were playing later. So, I really learned about the game through listening and visualizing, because I could never really see it all the time. We got to the university, I grew up at Long Beach State, so this was a wow factor. The facilities are bigger than anything I've ever seen. The football stadium fits 80, 90,000. So I'm like wowed by this. This is a small college town with big time college athletics. Although softball wasn't on that big time docket, it was, here's our softball program. We play over here at Reeves Park, which is a city park. We'd go over there and practice, but we had to be off by 5 o'clock because slow pitch had to come on. So we were run off. But I would have our team go over early and pick up trash. There was trash from the night before, slow pitch tournaments and slow pitch leagues. I wanted us to understand the blue collar style of, no one's going to make this field pretty for us. We're going to do it ourselves. So we literally started at a park field, outgrew that. They built a stadium, Marita Hines Stadium, which was probably 500 chairback seats, and then the rest was standing room only, so we could get maybe 1,200 in there. We outgrew that. But now we've got a beautiful stadium that can pack in 4,500 plus. So it's been 31 years of watching, starting from literally nothing and watching it grow into the best stadium now in the country, with hopes that other people from this stadium could find a way to make theirs better. So, we started literally from nothing.
The top ranked high school basketball player in the nation in the class of 2025, AJ DeBonza. AJ, thanks for being with us at Says Who Sports.
I don't usually try to force a lot of the issue. I just let the game come to me. If the first shot I take happens to be a 3, it happens to be a 3. But I'm never the type to really force a shot unless it's like a heat check moment. I made 4 threes in a row. I might just shoot, for a heat check. But I mean, I really just let the game come to me. So it's really just a feel. Like once you feel it, you just start attacking certain spots. You just start making certain shots, and you just start feeling it. I really take pride in being unselfish. I don't want to be that one guy. I mean, I used to play with guys that used to be balls. So I don't want to be that one guy that's just balls. I mean, when it's that time of the game and it's a close game, I mean, I feel like I have the confidence to go take over. But I mean, and during the game, like, everybody's on my team for a reason. So I think everybody like scoring, everybody doing everything is way better than just one person doing it.
Joining me now is a 10-year official in the NFL. Worked Super Bowl 55, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers versus the Chiefs. Sarah Thomas.
They're the best athletes in the world to me. The relationships that I've been able to build, and but I have that mindset, John, that when I first walked onto the field in Hurley, Mississippi for Pee Wee Jamboree, those kids play like it's their Super Bowl. They do. And now that I've officiated a Super Bowl, I've been in the NFL for 10 seasons, a decade, I literally take it with that same mindset that I am out there to manage a position, and these guys, every snap is like a Super Bowl. It could determine a failure or success. When I walked in that meeting room, George Nash, he's still living, he's 84, still a mentor of mine today, but he's standing there talking to another official. He stops talking to him. Of course, I didn't know who anyone was. And George looks at me, stares me down. So to break the ice, I just said, "Hey, is this where you become a football referee?" I'm sure that's what I said. And he said, blankety blank, I guess so. But I sat there, and like I said, I was just thinking, you got to be kidding me. But I also was like, I don't have a clue what I've just walked into. I mean, but we were raised, once you show your face, you don't quit. But I literally didn't have a clue about the game of football. And I'm certain there's probably still people out there who think I don't have a clue about the game of football. But I didn't know that I was on 11 on 11. I didn't know that the numbers meant something on the jerseys. I didn't know that 7 had to be on the line of scrimmage. All your basic, ground, the foundation of the game. I had no clue. I just don't think of it as a thankless job. I'm not looking for the pats on the back from anyone. I want the players and the coaches to be able to do their job. I don't want to go in and jeopardize anything. And even when a coach gets heated with me, I get it. I wouldn't want somebody coming into my job and dictating my success or my failure at times. I just don't. And I don't think that we carry the weight of that. I've learned, don't go through life to prove people wrong, because that's going to rob you of why you are loving the craft. So many people, I had that chip on my shoulder. I'm going to prove this person wrong. I'm going to prove that person wrong. But that list of people, John, never goes away. As soon as you check one off, there's a new line leader. So I've just instilled in me to prove to myself I belong where I am. If I failed, use it as feedback, build off of it. Don't do things for the recognition. If you're doing things because you love it, the people you thought you had to prove wrong, they're going to fall in behind you because they see the work ethic, the infectious love that you have for the craft.
Joining us right now is an Indiana sports legend. Played for Bob Knight's Indiana Hoosiers from 81 to 85. Was a 2-time captain there. Can find his shows Don't At Me with Dan Dockich on Outkick Network and the Dan Dockich Show on Indy's Sports Ticket, 14:30 a.m. weekdays.
I wish my coaching career would have gone differently. I got too many kids hurt, but I learned to really drive and not accept from anybody, mediocrity. And sometimes that's abrasive. Sometimes I come off the wrong way to people. But I also, I learned that, hey, look, people will give you so much. Human nature will give you so much. And it's a coach's job or it's a broadcaster's job to bring out more. And I enjoy that. I'm just thrilled that as the worst athlete, running, jumping, that kind of thing, to ever play at Indiana, I'm at least remembered for one thing playing at Indiana. If it's got to be something, might as well be, beating Michael Jordan and his great team. So it's nice to be remembered for that as opposed to something, else. I'm starstruck, right? My brother, me, and my dad, and Coach Knight talks to the team, whatever, introduces himself to us, says, "Wait right here." And, I'm looking. I'll never forget, the place kind of cleans out, but we're waiting on Coach Knight to do all the press stuff, and I'm looking at this goals board that they had, and I'm not really paying attention. I'm reading the goals for the team, and I get a whack right on the side of my head. Actually, it was this side, and I turn because I think it's my brother messing with me, and I turn with my fist clenched, and I go, oh, man, it was Coach Knight. And he goes, hey, Danny, are you going to play here or not? And I looked at my dad, and I said, well, are you offering me a scholarship? And he goes, yeah, dumbass, I'm offering you a scholarship. What do you think? I want you to walk on? Yeah. People are so used to being bullshitted or placated or whatever the right word is that if you have a forum, and Outkick is the fastest growing place in America right now, and it's bigger and bigger. People don't necessarily agree with you. And one thing I have learned, John, when I was on ESPN, you'd get a lot of people that loved you. You get a lot of vitriol, right? But when you talk politically on like Outkick, those people are really nasty. Like the political people are freaking nasty, particularly this year with this election, and I kind of dig it. But, you know, it's sad that the truth isn't the standard. The truth is like an exception, and that sucks.
A two-time NASCAR Cup Series Championship Pit Crew member at Hendrick Motorsports, the tire carrier for William Byron and the 24 car, who, by the way, won the Daytona 500 last season, Ryan Patton.
I've been doing this a long time, and how has training changed? You know, I'm not really trying to put record-setting numbers up on a back squat or on a bench press. You know, now with pit road and with pit stop times being as fast as they are, you have to be a hybrid athlete. You know, you have to be strong, explosive, and able to move. And so my training kind of follows that. We've got a great strength conditioning staff here at Hendrick Motorsports that stays ahead of the curve in terms of not only strength but mobility. On the 24 team, it's now that, hey, we're a championship contender, and my role is, how can I bring some of my championship experience infiltrated into our teammates, whether it be fellow pit crew guys or William or however I could interject that to try to take the next step forward as our team and become Cup champions. Ryan Newman was having a tough day. We were having a tough day. As I ran out to the right side, he hit the tire in one of my hands. So when I run in front of the car, I carry two tires. I carry the right rear and the right front, so I have one in each hand. They're about 70 pounds each. And when he hit me, I just held on for dear life. He actually knocked it out of my hands, but he also clipped me as well. And I flipped up, and I looked like a turtle laying on its shell. I was, my feet and my hands, I was facing the sky. I was laying on top of our front tire changer. I had no idea where the tires went. I had a split second to think. You show up on time, and you show up with your game face on, right? And you work your tail off Monday through Friday to get to game day. And then when you get to game day, like obviously expectations are high and to perform, but you've prepared all week. So a lot of the things that Jimmy and Chad really spoke about and drove home about not only preparing yourself individually, but also being a great teammate is all stuff that I had learned at an early age from my time at Delta St. John's, and then honed through working with tremendous amount of people at Ohio State, whether it be Coach Tressel or a bunch of the players that are still playing on Sunday.
Paul Jackson of Blackberry Smoke. Paul, thanks for being here, and Merry Christmas.
The first time we played with Skinner in 03.
It was 03, huh? Wow.
Yeah, I think it was in Dallas. And it was like a one-off. We got to open for him. It was us, 38 Special, and Skinner. And that was it was special because it was our first time playing with a big act like that. And it was also comical because we pulled our gear off the stage ourselves.
Yeah, that lets you know real quick where, the hierarchy.
Yeah. And it was funny. I was backstage, and after we got done, I was drinking a beer, and then Ricky Medlock come back to say hey to us. And I love Ricky. He's so awesome. But I was the only one. I had a beer in my hand, and there was a beer hanging from there. And then the photo got in a newspaper, and Britt had to fix the photo.
Had to black out the beer?
So it's just my thumb like this. It's hilarious. I've never been a musician that's been all about me. I'm just not that type of person. I like to be in a unit. And I'm like, everybody's equal, even you. even this person, that person, whoever you have in your organization, you're a family at that point. You just got to accept it. It's not just about you. You have to think about every other individual that you're out there with, because if you're in a band situation, which there's very few of them these days, a band, everybody's all got to have a say and be equal, or they won't last. There's just no way. It's about every individual in that band. Everybody has personalities. Everybody has little quirks. You just have to learn how to deal with it. So if you're a musician and you've never had a brother, you need to figure it out. Britt, I don't know, man. He was obviously a driving force, like all of us were in it. And it's weird not having him around. And, when he passed, we decided to keep playing. We took a week off, but we decided to keep playing because that's what he would want us to do. I can honestly tell you that. And I know he would. He's like, well, we got to get to work. We don't want to sit around and be miserable, and losing him was definitely a big blow, but he kind of taught us, we each learn from one. Right? Yeah, we each learn from one another. Like, you got a lot of people you don't want to let down, so, and I'll be with you no matter what, That's the way I look at it. He's with us no matter what.
Owns the third most wins in D1 men's college basketball history. Try 935 of them. To put that in perspective, names below his on that list of all-time winningest coaches include Dean Smith, Bob Knight, and Roy Williams. Bob Huggins, Coach, it's so good to have you here. Thank you for it. From a coaching perspective, is that past? Do you still have an active desire to do it? How do you see that in your mind, coaching college hoops again, potentially, or no?
I think in the right situation, I would love to, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it the way it was done in some places that I worked. I think it's about young people. I think it's about, it's you go to college to be able to make something yourself, to be able to do what it is that you want to do. That how you want to spend the rest of your life, how you want to be able to raise your family. I mean, a lot of things, and I think those are wonderful things, and I think those are things that help you, other than sitting in a classroom in college. But I think in everything, there's people who only care about themselves and what they can get out of it, instead of trying to help young people. Had a great relationship with Tark. Tark, I was sitting in the stands watching a tournament game, and Tark came up and sat down beside me and started talking to me and started, why do you do this? Why do you do that? Really enjoy watching your teams play. And I just kind of fell in love with the guy in terms of basketball, and we would sit and talk. The tough thing was you didn't get to watch much of the game because we're talking back and forth to each other about basketball. Spent a lot of time with Jerry. Spent a great deal of time, and he was great about, come on, let's go to dinner. And in Vegas, he didn't have to pay for anything, so it was a pretty good deal. I got to be around Woody Hayes. Woody would periodically come down to the basketball office and tell Eldon, I'm taking him with me for a while. And Coach would say, okay, and I'd go down and I'd talk to Woody, and Woody'd talk about Tuscarawas County and Cy Young Newcomerstown.
Wow.
And, you know, the people in Tuscarawas County. So, I mean, I don't know how anybody could have it better than what I had it.
A long-time play-by-play broadcaster for ESPN, is in her 30th year with ESPN, and for 3 decades, the signature television voice of the Women's College World Series. Beth Mowens joins us.
I saw Phyllis George on the NFL Today show back in the late 70s, and that was sort of my first indication that, wow, I could actually combine 2 things that I love to do, play sports and talk about sports. And when I asked my mom one day if I could be a sportscaster, she simply said, yes, you can. And that is probably the most significant phrase that I've heard in my life. I think most important is you got to have fun. You got to show the viewer that you're having fun. It's a game. And so much of it is about your preparation. And just like I would for a game, it's a very similar approach to broadcasting. You're doing a scouting report. You're watching game tape. You're having production meetings just like you would have, strategy sessions in practice and with your coaches. And so a lot of those similarities carry over into broadcasting. And it really is your preparation, your repetition, and then your execution.
The television voice of the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness and the Breeders' Cup on NBC, who called the first Triple Crown winner in 37 years and called a second Triple Crown winner just a few years later, Larry Colmus.
I got a phone call up in the announcer's booth at Gulfstream Park, and it was that day that I guess I became a 25-year overnight sensation. After all the years of working the way up and paying my dues, I got a call from NBC Sports asking me if I'd be interested in calling the Triple Crown. Here comes American Pharoah over, and Bob hands me his lead and walks away. I'm not a hands-on horse person. I am holding the Triple Crown winner. He's looking at me. I'm looking at him.
The coach of the high school football team with the longest current winning streak in the nation. A man whose teams have won an Ohio high school record 14 state championships in 3 different divisions, and all since 2000. Coach Tim Goodwin of the Marion Local Flyers.
I'm not big on, like mission statements and all this hoo-ha that some coaches are. And if it works for them, great for them. But, our motto basically is be humble and work hard. And, being humble it covers a whole lot of ground there. You're respecting every opponent, respecting your teachers in school, respecting your coaches, your teammates, taking coaching. And obviously the work hard. You have to enjoy the journey, or else the destination, no matter what it is, it is not worth it. I've been down that road before. I was a young coach, and I grew up, as a son of a high school coach, and there was nothing more I wanted to do than coach a team that took a deep run in the playoffs. And I was able to do that. And then, when that season's over, it's over, and nothing really changed with your life. So you quickly reflect, like, all right, that was fun, but let's really focus what's the importance and what's going to last longer than the actual win. And I think, to me, the process of doing the things that you have to do to give yourself a chance to win is the joy.